On today's show, the Knicks expected to hire Mike Brown as their Tibbs replacement. Is he the right fit for New York? The Lakers gambling on DeAndre Ayton as the answer to their big man problem. And with his unexpected buyout from the Milwaukee Bucks, where's the best landing spot for Damian Lillard? It's all coming up right here on Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What is up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA Game Night. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of the Locked On Rockets podcast right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. And joining me is my partner in crime, the host of Locked On Heat, David Ramil. David, how are you enjoying free agency so far? Are you ready for Dame to finally be a member of the Miami Heat?
I don't think that's going to happen, but sure, why not? Let's make it happen. That was probably the most unexpected move of free agency so far. There have been some moves that I did not see coming, but that was not something that I saw happening.
Hey, man, better late than never, right? Dame will make his way down to Miami eventually. All right, we will be talking about Damian Lillard and where his best landing spot is after his unexpected departure from the Milwaukee Bucks, being bought out by the Bucks. Questionable decision there. We're also going to get into the Lakers gambling on DeAndre Ayton as their answer to their big man problem. And then where we're going to start things off with today's episode is actually out in New York, where they seemingly have found their Tom Thibodeau replacement in Mike Brown. But first, I want to let you know that we appreciate you for making Locked On NBA your first listen each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. Now, the news that we got Wednesday afternoon, the New York Knicks are expected to land on two-time NBA Coach of the Year Mike Brown as the franchise's next head coach. Let's take it out to Locked On Knicks and hear their instant reaction to this news.
New York Knicks have their next head coach. They are expected to hire Mike Brown. Let's just start with the temperature check. What is your gut feeling about the New York Knicks hiring Mike Brown?
I mean, I've been kind of accepting of this for the last few days. This kind of seemed like the direction they were going to ultimately go. Look, if you asked me, and I wasn't the one interviewing the coaches, I was probably more of a Taylor Jenkins guy. But ultimately, I think Brown's resume is good. I think that he did really well for himself in Sacramento. There are some questions, obviously, like some of the things that Sacramento fans were unhappy with him about are the same things that Knicks fans were unhappy with Tibbs about, in terms of burying younger players that, the fan base generally thought has been good and the numbers supported them, like Keon Ellis. I know Kings fans weren't super happy with that, but ultimately, I mean, with the hand he was dealt, he created a pretty good defense there. They ran, I think, more creative offense than what the Knicks ran. He certainly did a really good job of utilizing a versatile big man in Sabonis on offense, which he'll get, barring any trades or anything happening, he'll get Karl-Anthony Towns, who's a versatile offensive big man to work with on the Knicks. So that's a plus. Sort of a similar situation, like star player wise, although they have different skill sets, obviously, but he's coming from a team with a star point guard, star center with some defensive issues, to a team with a star point guard, star center, both with some defensive issues of their own, but a really good defensive team otherwise, in terms of the personnel that he's handed with all the wings that the Knicks have and everything else. So, I feel pretty good about it.
All right, David, let's start right there. You look at the landscape of available coaches, and I say available, even though the Knicks basically tried to chat up every currently employed head coach. It seems like they went through half the NBA before they stopped that whole gambit. Do you think there was a better available head coach on the market, or do you think Mike Brown was the best name that they could get their hands on?
I don't know if he was available or if he's shown any interest in resuming his role in the coaching ranks, but to me, Michael Malone is a better option. I think Taylor Jenkins, as they mentioned on the short video there, is probably another good name there. I like Brown. Mike's good to talk to, always seems generally positive. I don't have any questions necessarily about his capabilities, but at the same time, it kind of feels more like a lateral move than anything else. I don't think of it as a significant upgrade. And that's If you're going to fire a proven coach like Tom Thibodeau, who got the most out of a roster that had been beat up, okay, largely because of his own malpractice, I get that. At the same time, he did get a lot out of that roster. They fell short of expectations. I understand that was a concern as well. There were issues there, no doubt. But if you're going to fire him because you didn't reach the expectations that you had, lofty ones, perhaps unrealistically lofty ones, then you're going to have to hire somebody that you think can at least show a significant upgrade or that has the capacity to maximize this roster in a way that Thibodeau did not. And I don't know that Mike Brown is it. I think he's a fine coach, but I think there's a level to what he's capable of. And I just don't see that he's going to be able to get that group over whatever particular hump Knicks ownership views as the missing part to being able to secure a championship in the Big Apple.
You know, I'm torn on it because I think I'm in agreement with you that there might have been a head coach with, I guess, a slightly higher ceiling than Mike Brown, maybe more of a lateral move, a safe pick, if you will. But I do think that the Kings have had, they had some really successful offenses under Mike Brown. I thought he was doing some really creative stuff over there, a lot of like pistol action, kind of running things at the elbow with De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis. A lot more creativity in some of those Kings offensive sets than what anything you would see Tom Thibodeau running in New York. And I think arguably the Knicks have more offensive talent between Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. And even though the rest of their, supporting cast are all much more kind of defensive oriented guys, I think that the Knicks overall are a much more potent offensive team than what Brown had to work with in Sacramento personally. So I'm kind of excited to see what he's going to be able to achieve with them from an offensive perspective, assuming here that the defense kind of just holds and I guess stays the same. But my big thing is I don't know if Mike Brown gets enough credit for this, right? He really helped build like a special culture in Sacramento, right? During the little run that he had. Like, and so, yeah, go ahead.
To me, sorry to interrupt, but that's what I was just going to say. Like JB Bickerstaff, those guys are culture setters. But at the same time, like you just said, there's a limited ceiling there. And I don't know if they're capable. I mean, look at what Cleveland did and how they fell short in the playoffs, undoubtedly. And yet they set historic records during the regular season. And so I think there's just coaches that are better suited for taking teams that might be directionless and aimless and trying to get them to achieve something of worth, like we saw Bickerstaff do with the Pistons this year, like we saw Brown do with a Kangs team that had just been basically stuck in the mire for years. New York has a culture. Thibodeau created that. They've got their core already. They've got the pieces they need. They need somebody to get them over the hump. This is, to me, a swing and a miss because it's just such a safe pick. It's just not the right move for what this Knicks team was looking for.
What's tough about that too is, and I'm in full agreement with you there. There's like the culture setting coaches, the kind of floor raising coaches, and not necessarily, again, going back to the floor versus ceiling argument there. So maybe Mike Brown is just another in kind of that, long lineage of the coaches that is really good at getting an established floor with the team. I will say though, with how wide open the East feels due to all the injuries this upcoming season, and even like the couple, depth pieces the Knicks are, slated to get with adding Clarkson and then adding Yabusele from the Sixers, like those depth pieces and a coach who might be a little bit more willing to go a little bit deeper into the bench might be enough to kind of just get them over the hump this next year. But we're going to be interested. We want your thoughts. Was Mike Brown the best option for New York, or should they have gone another route, either Taylor Jenkins or Michael Malone? We want your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But coming up, we're going to get into the rest of our show here. The Lakers gambling on DeAndre Ayton is the answer to their big man problem. Where's the best spot for Damian Lillard after being bought out, I should say, by the Bucks? We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Do you ever wish managing your money felt easier? Well, with Monarch Money, it can. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building your wealth. Look, when I started using Monarch, I was honestly surprised and frankly a little embarrassed at how much I was spending on food, like just dining out at restaurants, getting fast food late at night, delivery fees on food. It was a lot. It was embarrassing, honestly. Now I budget smarter and save more. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your very first year. And continuing on here at Locked On NBA Game Night, let's get out to our next big piece of breaking news. The Lakers finding the answer to their big man woes, or did they find the answer to their big man woes? Reportedly signing DeAndre Ayton. He's going to get a 2-year deal to sign with the Lakers, a player option in year 2. Per Shams Charania. Let's throw it out to Locked On Lakers for their reaction to this news before we pontificate on it.
Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers finally got themselves a center, DeAndre Ayton, fresh off a buyout from the Portland Trailblazers, coming off a season where he averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, 3 on the offensive glass, and a block. He is, despite all of the well-documented concerns about DeAndre Ayton when it comes to hustle and motivation, teammate, all of that stuff, the best center the Lakers could have gotten through free agency by a mile in terms of just overall talent and upside. Hopefully he will learn better professionalism from LeBron James. He will find joy and inspiration running the floor, catching lobs from Luka Doncic. He is very good at throwing down dunks off lobs. And he may just recognize, this is my last chance to become seen as a frontline center, a frontline big man in the NBA, and to avoid being seen as a former number 1 overall pick who wasted his talent and basically just became another dude in the league who bounces around, frustrating team after team after team. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you are watching Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts.
All right, David, this DeAndre Ayton news, it was like the writing was on the wall all free agency. As soon as we found out about the buyout from Portland, it was like, all right, he's a Laker. Like, when's it going to happen? How long is it going to take? I don't know how much dominating we're going to see in LA per se. Look, being paired with Luka, LeBron, I can't imagine a better environment for Ayton to go to basically be spoon-fed his points. Yes. How are you feeling about this pairing from the Lakers' perspective and from Ayton's perspective?
Torn, no doubt, because I think there's just as much potential for disaster as there is for total success. And I think I still like it, though. I think on the final evaluation, I like it because it's a swing with a lot of potential there and maximize what that roster can do offensively. Defensively, they'll have their issues. That's a whole other story. But as far as what they can do on the floor and score at a high level, I think Luka is going to be great. LeBron is going to be just as great, I think, and being able to get Ayton those easy looks at the basket. But there's the flip side of that, in that I think that team has a lot of pressure on it with high expectations. And Ayton hasn't exactly shown the ability to thrive under those circumstances. I think he's more of a kind of, I'll put up points guy and don't expect too much out of me. He just, again, the questions about the effort and motivation and things of that sort are legitimate. And I think maybe he can go a long way towards eradicating that reputation, but this might be the most difficult opportunity to do so, because a LeBron-led team, and still LeBron's team, even with Luka on the roster, is a very difficult fit for any player to just come into. Like at the surface, you might of what's happening offensively, how to get the ball in certain spaces, how to be, because he has such a computer mind for the game and knows exactly where he wants players all over the floor, that adapting to his style of play, even at this stage of his career, isn't a significant challenge. Some players thrive, others do not. I think Ayton can thrive, and that being the case, and that would be the kind of swing that the Lakers certainly would hit a home run with. But there's concerns also about whether or not he can kind of flourish at that point, with that kind of pursuit of a title being the ultimate goal there, and not necessarily putting up points needlessly. So I'm curious to see how it all works out. I'm cautiously optimistic, and I think Lakers fans are too.
Yeah, at this point, I'm going into it with, I guess, low expectations, and it does feel like, I mean, it's, you go into this thinking, first off, if Ayton and the Blazers hadn't agreed to a buyout, my God, what was LA going to do? Like, they're just going to sit on their hands and let Rui Hachimura run the 5 full time next season? Like, it felt like they struck out across the board on so many other potential options, right? They missed out on Clint Capella. Shout out Houston. They got him reuniting with their ex big man. And then honestly, the Rockets may have done that just to screw with the Lakers a little bit. No, I kid. But so they missed out on Capella. They missed out on Brook Lopez. Like, they missed out on a few different options there to fill that gaping hole at their 5 spot. And they just kind of lucked into, okay, DeAndre Ayton's a free agent now, and he's been bought out. Cool. Now we can get him. So I do like it from the upside perspective. Offensively, the fit should on paper be pretty seamless with, Ayton setting screens and getting, lob passes from LeBron and Luka and, fitting in there. He doesn't really have to do much outside of be a solid screen setter and a finisher in and around the basket. It's not like the Lakers are going to expect him to post up or be any source of consistent offense, in the post for them. Defensively, if he's not motivated, if they don't have a motivated version of DeAndre Ayton, this Lakers defense is still going to be a catastrophe, David, because they've still got Luka, they've still got LeBron, they've still got Austin Reeves on the perimeter, and then their backline help defense is DeAndre Ayton and Rui Hachimura. Like, that's not striking fear into the hearts of anybody. That has bottom 10 defense written all over it, unless they get the absolute best version of DeAndre Ayton, the version of DeAndre Ayton that helped anchor the Suns defense on their way to the finals that one year. If they get that version of Ayton, then the defense, I won't say it's going to be good, but it'll be like at least serviceable enough that they'll be able to lean on their, high octane offense and their 2 superstars to try and get them through the mud and some of that. But for me, I do like just from a contractual perspective, I like the deal because it's a prove it deal for Ayton. It's, hey, are you actually still a good NBA player? Like, do you care enough to be a good player with the player option here in year 2? And what that effectively does, right, is the Lakers get their swing. Ayton gets a chance to prove himself, to showcase, hey, I've still got talent. I still belong. I'm still an NBA caliber starting center. And here's the downside, though. And this is where I think, I wonder who was giving up more ground here, because I feel like if Ayton does have like this breakout season, then what do the Lakers do next year, right? Do they have to sign Ayton to some like massive contract to be able to like hold him down? Well, there's going to be so many teams with cap money next summer that if Ayton does ball out and looks like a serviceable, like, upper echelon kind of big, then somebody's going to want to take that upside swing on him. And so they either lose him for nothing this summer, or they have to pay an obscene amount to try and retain him to match whatever offer he might get from another team somewhere down the line, somewhere, 20, 25, $30 million. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of cap room floating around next summer.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a concern for another day right now. I mean, their window is this year. They're just looking ahead to what they could do this season, especially with LeBron at his age. And
is their window this year with what Rob Pelinka's signaling and the fact that like LeBron is maybe open to finishing his career elsewhere? Like, is their window actually this year, or are we going to get the other shoe falling like before training camp where LeBron suddenly gets traded to, a mystery second team location?
We haven't talked about it. So this is our first time to even bring the subject up. Do you think there's any kind of legitimacy to LeBron actually seeking another opportunity elsewhere? Because I don't. I don't buy it. But at the same time, like, you got to look at the state of the Lakers roster. And like, if Pelinka's whole game plan is, hey, we're focused on the future and we're focused on Luka down the line and having cap space in 2027 and we want 2-year contracts and all that, like, that's kind of a mismanagement of the situation when you have LeBron James, who's still playing out of his mind at this stage in his career. And you also have Luka Doncic. Like, the idea to not contend with these two on your roster right here in the here and now is the most, like, that's basketball malpractice by Rob Pelinka, if that's the case. But I think they're still good enough to be contenders. I think that's certainly a possibility. They're a playoff team. And I think given the 2-star that they have on that roster, I could see them being contenders. That roster certainly has glaring deficiencies, and I'll cop to that. But yet I think their strengths are so much that I think they'll be able to get past those respective weaknesses. Although they might have a limited run in the playoffs if a team can exploit that defense with any kind of consistency. And that seems likely to be the case. But you know what? You never know. Maybe they're a midseason move away from getting that perfect wing defender that might take them to another level. I don't know who that might be. Where do you see them rank in the Western Conference in terms of contenders? Because I would put Houston at the top of that list, obviously. Aside from that, Oklahoma City second, maybe, or right up there with Houston.
Oh, well, I think until proven otherwise, and Rockets fans might behead me for this, but until proven otherwise,
you're being humble. Don't be humble. Don't start now.
Okay. No. I'll be a little humble here. OKC's still in a tier of their own. Like they until proven otherwise, OKC's still in a tier of their own. I think it goes Rockets, Nuggets in kind of the next year. I really like Denver's offseason moves. Denver's been solid. And then I think, and it's too early, I think, to start separating all the other teams. But I think it's those like OKC by itself, then Denver and Houston by them, in one tier by themselves. And then after that, everybody else. Like just and the Lakers are somewhere in that jumble of everybody else. And that's not where you want to be if you're supposedly contending for a title with Luka and LeBron. Like you don't want to be in the jumble with everybody else. You want to have some clear advantages where you actually feel good about going into a series. If you were to airdrop the Lakers and Wolves into another 7-game series in the first round right now, David, all the smart money's on the Wolves. Like the Lakers didn't get better. They in fact, they got worse because they lost Dorian Finney-Smith, and he was important to what they did defensively. The little bit of defense that they had on the roster is now gone. So I don't know. I'm not buying the Lakers. I'm not a big fan of the dominating strategy, even though it was their only Hail Mary play they had left to have some semblance of a big man on the roster. We want to know how you feel about DeAndre Ayton in LA. Give us your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Coming up, though, where is the best landing spot for Damian Lillard after his buyout with the Milwaukee Bucks? We're going to get there in just one moment. And final segment here at Locked On NBA Game Night. All right, David, I know I teased you about it earlier, but Damian Lillard gets his choice of where he goes to next in the NBA after being bought out from the Milwaukee Bucks. As it stands, he's going to be rehabbing, if not all of this year, at least most of this season. I think the smart money would be on Dame probably spending maybe the entire year just out focusing on his body. So this might be, a very early conversation to be having this, because here's the thing is, Dame might not even find a suitor to pay him this offseason, right? Every team might look at Dame and say, you know what? We'll revisit in, 9 months, 10 months when you're closer to being back or whatever the rehab process ultimately looks like. I think there will probably still be a couple teams out there that might take a look at Dame and think, yep, he can be the piece that puts us over the top, depending on the role that he's willing to accept. Sure. I think I want to start there before we get into like specific teams. What do you think Dame is going to look like, I guess, after this? Not like, obviously we don't know how these players respond when they come through rehab and everything, but do you think Dame is going to still be expecting to be like one of the guys on a contender? Or do you think he'll come back and be like, no, I'm cool with a reserve role. Like bring me off the bench, like whatever.
I think it's the hard realization that he'll have to make, that where he can be a highly productive bench player or the occasional starter. But certainly he can't come.
So you don't see him as an all-out starter at this point?
No, I don't. I don't think that's a clear position for him right now. And it's a hard pill to swallow for older players, obviously. But I look at him and the injury issue and the fact that I say that because I think he wants to join a contending team before we get into any kind of specific groups. But you can't just expect to join a contending team, and especially despite his accomplishments and his incredible career, you can't go into a contending team and be like, okay, this is what I should get this much, because you don't. That's just not how it works. You don't. Yeah,
I'm your starter. I'm your point guard. I'm your, like it doesn't often work that way. So
right. So I think he's going to have to be like, you know what? I know that at this point in my career, I put up plenty of points. I'm already assured of a Hall of Fame career. The only thing that's missing is a title, and that being the case, I'll accept whatever role is necessary, knowing again that he's probably going to be a valued contributor during any kind of a playoff run, just because he's that good of a player. And I think he still will be once he comes back from injury, because the nature of his game has never necessarily been built on explosiveness. It's certainly not over the last few years of his career. So I think he'll be able to kind of still be a very functional, high-level player, but one with a smaller role, because that's just what happens when you join a contending team.
I think, and this is part of the intro, and I know they had this discussion previously on our sister show here on the Locked On NBA feed, but part of it's so interesting to be thinking, what type of a contract then are you looking at for Damian Lillard? Because, if Dame was super content on just like, I've made my money, I've earned my accolades, like you said, I'm a future guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famer at this point, like, what do I need to do to win a title? You would think, okay, just take the vet minimum to go sign with, go sign with the Celtics, go sign with the Lakers, go sign with whoever gives you the bet, go sign with the Nuggets, right. Like go sign with whatever team gives you the best shot to win a title. do it on a vet minimum. I guess but there might be teams out there that are still willing to actually pay Dame like an actual salary to contribute instead of him just, showing up and be like, okay, I'll just take the vet minimum and I'll just slot in wherever you want me to. And that's where I think things get a little bit interesting. Are there teams that are going to still be willing to pay Damian Lillard potentially to miss most, if not all of this next season in order to get him on a contract where they can then bring him back the following year and say, okay, if you're Dame, awesome, cool. Something like a 2+1 deal, maybe, where like that third year is like a player option, something. Yeah. Where he's got some control. So it's like, okay, you're paying for him to rehab, but then you get him for at least a year. And if he looks like Dame, then you get Dame for a year at least, which is a total win for most teams that are going to be looking at him, in this type of situation.
But that's kind of overlooking that he has a choice to make. And I think from what we've heard, he's not in any kind of rush to make a decision anytime soon. And while a team might want to have that sort of supervision of his rehab process, I think you could still be actively involved, even as a free agent, in showing teams no one doubts his professionalism. And while you certainly want to be able to kind of, again, have a supervisory position as a team looking to add him to your roster, I don't think anybody's all that concerned. Dame can afford to get the best treatment. I know that he's going to go through the process of rehabbing with the utmost level of commitment and everything else like that. So I don't think it's as important for a team to sign him now at this point in time. And I would actually expect him to sit out most of the year, as a free agent, and not be under contract. And then at some point, as the rehab process continues to progress, then a team could offer him whatever deal they would. And at that point, then it would be a prorated amount and probably not for the full whatever he could possibly get. I really do think he's going to take like a vet minimum or a very cap friendly type deal. Will there be other teams that might offer him more money? Sure, but that's not his priority. He's getting paid a ton of money by Milwaukee to do absolutely nothing. So
$23 million a year to not play for the play. Shoot, hey, Milwaukee, I'll take $1 million a year to not play for you. Like, just that's a discount. That's 1/23 the amount that you're paying Damian Lillard to not play for your franchise for the next 5 years. Just kick that back to me.
Buy and stretch, baby. Yeah, why not? Sure. Hey, look, I'm
sorry. When's the last time we saw a buyout and stretch? Who's the last? I should have looked this up before we hit record, because I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen one of these in the NBA.
Yeah. Especially with this current CBA and everything else.
Yeah,
Anyway, that's Milwaukee's problem.
Man, no,
they got Miles Turner, so who knows?
Yeah, we got Miles Turner. Hang the banner. We stole Miles Turner from the Pacers. That's what they did. That's the banner that's going to be there. Oh man. Okay, look. So I think we're both on the same page here. We fully expect Dame to sit out most of this season, which is where I think that's where things get a little interesting though, because if Dame is let's say Dame is healthy and ready to sign to a team in February, March of this next year, that's where things get really interesting, because he'll be able to actually survey the NBA landscape and then kind of just pick his next team from, the cream of the crop and see, okay, who are the top 3-4 teams, on top of each conference, who has the best shot to make it to the finals and win a chip. And then he could just go knocking on their door and say, hey, you guys want a little Damian Lillard in your life?
I think that's exactly right. So yeah, the power of choice will certainly be his, and that makes a lot of sense. I would imagine it would be a Western Conference team, and I think obviously you have, but Oklahoma City doesn't feel like they need him, nor would they bring a player like that there. Houston, you cover the Rockets. What do you think? Would you think the Rockets could absorb a player like Damian Lillard on a pretty cap friendly deal, and it wouldn't be that much of a disruption for the roster as currently constructed?
Yeah, if they did it, and if it was just, again, under the assumption that he's willing to just take a vet minimum since he's still getting paid from Milwaukee, then sure. And I think the Rockets are in a position with their cap relative to the being right up against, they're hard capped against the first apron right now. They'd be able to make the room to get him on a vet minimum deal with no problem, and not break the rule of going over the first apron as a hard cap team. So, I could see that as a possibility, and I don't know if Dame and KD have any pre-existing relationship. I'm sure there's some mutual respect there, but I don't know of any. Say that again.
Olympic teammates.
Olympic team makes, okay, there we go. But so I don't know how deep those connections ultimately run, but when you have a star player like KD, which God, it feels nice to be able to say that again, as a fan of the Rockets, when you have a star player like KD who can pull some strings, when you have a head coach in Ime Udoka, somebody that players absolutely yearn to play for, one of the most popular coaches in NBA circles, a guy that reportedly tons of players want to come to Houston specifically to try to play for Ime, that bodes well in these types of discussions. And if the Rockets hit the ground running this next season, and if they've got the open roster spot, and if they feel like that little bit of guard help could be the thing that puts them over the top and guarantees them, a trip to at least the Western Conference Finals or a finals appearance against whoever comes out of the East, I think they would absolutely do it. I struggle to not see it being Denver, though. Like, Denver would be the spot where I think that Dame would think, even if it was Houston, right? They've got young talent. They've got KD. I think there would still be an expectation like, okay, Dame's still going to have to be Dame a little bit, right? If you go to Denver and you're Dame, you just get to play off of Jokic. He's going to get the easiest shots he's ever gotten in his entire career playing off of Jokic. Like, you look at how the dynamic worked with Russell Westbrook this past season, and Russ is not Dame, not in the slightest, at least as far as like outside shooting is concerned. And Russ got like some of the easiest buckets of his career off cuts, off backdoor plays, off just, I don't know, just Jokic makes life so much easier for everybody around him. If Dame was so serious about trying to win a ring and, depending, obviously injuries permitting, all that stuff, I'm really looking at Denver as being the team that kind of sneaks up and throws him an offer at some point later this season, assuming he's ready to be able to come back and contribute to some kind of a postseason run this year.
And why not Golden State? Why isn't that a team that's being discussed? Because obviously you've got Draymond, Jimmy, Steph, obviously. You've got a proven structure that can absorb a guy like Dame. He comes back to the Bay Area, his hometown, and wins a championship there. I mean, that would be like, I think, the ultimate story. And I think, again, given his similar-ish style to Steph, I think that's one where it would be a really great partnership there, backing him up, getting the occasional start as Steph continues to age into his career. I think that's a great story. And maybe they're not a clear contender to the same level as some of those other teams, but I think they certainly view themselves as such. And I think the addition of Lillard might put them over the top in that regard as well. So I just like that idea of possibly joining that team and again, bringing a championship back to Golden State, being a part of it as his hometown area there and finding a way to win at this stage in his career. I think that would be a great story.
Honestly, from a story perspective, I like that one a lot. I'm also, and this is going to be the thing that tells us a lot about ultimately what Dame's priorities are, right? Somewhere down the line. The money component is one of them. Is he willing to sacrifice and just take a vet minimum deal to join up somewhere? And then secondly, what kind of a role does he still see for himself, right? Does he still see himself as a 30+ minute a night starter, or is he going to be able to grapple with what you said, right? Is maybe the tough pill to swallow, the harsh reality that's not where he's at this stage of his career, that he's coming off a very major injury and the blood clot stuff as well. And then that he might not be able to be that 30+ minute a night starter, that's leading a team to a title. And if he's willing to accept that reserve role, that lesser role, then yeah, I could see the Warriors being a really intriguing possibility. Could you imagine trying to chase Steph and Dame around the perimeter of a game for
good luck with all that,
not even 48 minutes, like just because you're only gonna have to deal with Dame when he's off the bench for like 20-25 minutes, but the little bit of overlap between Steph and Dame running in tandem around screens on the perimeter. Oh my God, Draymond Green would have a field day. Just pick your poison at that point. Certainly an intriguing option. I don't know which one I lean on. I still think Denver would maybe be his best overall fit, personally. And I think that like watching Dame play off of Jokic as an unbiased third party would be phenomenal to witness personally. And it gives them that bench pop that Denver has wanted for literally ever in the entire Jokic era. With that, though, we want to know where your ideal Damian Lillard landing destination would be. Which team do you think would benefit the most from adding Dame? Where do you think he's the best fit at when he eventually does finish his rehab? We want your thoughts on that, on DeAndre Ayton and the Lakers, on Mike Brown and the Knicks. Give us all your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But until next time, thank you so much for being here with us on Locked On NBA Game Night. On our Locked On NBA feed, we got 2 episodes hitting your feed every single day. For your next listen, go check out any of the other wonderful Locked On shows across our network. Help us grow by listening every single day wherever you get your podcasts and subscribing on YouTube. Until then, we will catch you guys on our very next Game Night.
Bye.